Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this important hearing. I think it underscores what Martin Luther King would say is the fierce urgency of now and acting upon this. I would like to point out, listening to our colleagues talk and the questions here as well, that this underscores another specific reason why we shouldn't be shutting down government, because this is so vitally important, as we've just heard, just on the Medicare side alone. Also, we've learned, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record an article entitled University of Connecticut Researchers Lead the National Effort to Improve Drug Manufacturing, for the record.
Without objection.
And the reason I do that is because in last year's spending bill, we authorized the FDA to designate 5 higher education institutions as National Centers for Excellence in Advanced and Continuous Pharmaceutical Manufacturing. This designation would mean investing in domestic manufacturing and innovation. Unfortunately, when we continue to struggle to fully fund the government, the program remains unfunded. So we're here talking about a problem that needs specific attention. And yes, Mr. Kelly's right, it does require government funding, but to not fund these programs creates an enormous problem. Ms. Graylor, in your, Dr. Graylor, in your comments, you talked about continuing manufacturing and why that is so vitally important. It's it should be of interest to everyone, but could you also explain the current process of batching and why that leads to extra costs and inefficiency?
So continuous manufacturing would mean you've always got ongoing processing of either the active pharmaceuticals or of the drug. The batching that you refer to, which is a more standard practice, older model, there is every time you shift in and out, these are sterile injectable drugs that go into patients. So when you have to switch your assembly line, there is a cost involved with switching to another drug, switching to another ingredient, whatever, and that shuts it down. So the fits and starts have inherent cost in the system. So the continuous process of in the background, it's always being made, is just more efficient and more resilient. Because if something happens and it disrupts the whole supply chain, you don't have big batches of something and then not enough of another.
Mr. Cavassini, has that been your experience at McKesson, that the process of batching must be an enormous cost as opposed to continuous manufacturing?
Thank you for the question. I would like to emphasize that McKesson is a distributor of pharmaceuticals and not a manufacturer. We sit between the manufacturer and providers like hospitals and pharmacies and community providers. We run distribution centers and invest in inventory to make sure that needed medications are available to providers and patients where and when they need them. But, as we look at the generic market, and I think many generic manufacturers do share their production lines, right. And that process, as described by the doctor, can contribute to cost and waste and delays in when we need to surge into new products.
Well, thank you. And I remain concerned that we have to get on top of this process. And all of you have talked about the raw materials, et cetera. Is it a question that the United States does not have the raw materials that China and India have? Or do we have the raw materials, we're just not producing them? Anyone who would care to?
Thanks for that question. I would say that the U.S. has raw materials, carbon and oxygen and chemicals, but we don't have a lot of the formulated ingredients to make the drugs that we have. As I said in my comments, there are at least 100 active pharmaceutical ingredients that the only place you can acquire those in the world, and they're ready to incorporate in a drug product form, is in China. And there's another set of maybe 250 that are only available from India. There are over 600 that are not available in the U.S. anywhere. So sometimes it is that the ingredients do not exist in the U.S. We could set up companies to make those, but it takes considerable amount of time and will require a lot of investment in those operations.
Thank you, sir.